Bunn, a friend of mine up at Albury. He's involved in a engine restoration, rebuilding shop there. And I said, how many engines have you rebuilt, Don? And he said, about 200. I thought, wow, that's an enormous number of engines. But by doing that, putting those engines back into airworthy condition, he's just fostering the Tiger Master of tomorrow.
Southern Knights Harvard aerobatic team.
Action. Right in front of us.
The team today is Peter Clements, Night 1, Night 2 is Steve Death, Night 3 Guy Berg, and Night 4 Doug Hamilton. Now these guys have been flying together for many years now, and in fact down here in February 1995 Steve and Doug were flying in a larger formation of T6s, and Guy and Pete were flying Windshields. After that show they decided to see what they could do about putting together a 4-ship Harvard team, and they actually worked it up here at Point Cook for the Airshow at Avalon. 21st of February 1996 was their very first performance, and since then they really haven't changed the display terribly much at all. They're flying the North American Harvard trainer, known to the Americans as the T6 or the SNJ to the US Navy. 600 horsepower radial engine. First flew in 1935 and is still going strong. Used in World War II as an advanced trainer, and then in Korea as a spotter aircraft.
The other thing, of course, with the T6, as we call it, Peter, is that even that aircraft was designed and built for World War II usage, and at the same time, if you're flying one of these and you want a spare part on the internet, credit card, you can obtain new parts tomorrow, literally. Flying for a long time yet.
Were capable of air-to-ground strafing. They had a single machine gun, but later on they were fitted post-war with a number of 50 calibers under the wings, and they were also used in brush wars and also by the French in Algeria. The Portuguese in Angola and Mozambique, they actually fitted them with rockets and bombs and more machine guns as well. So they kept on going for quite some time, but today they are the most desirable aircraft for warbird pilots to train up and transition into.
Yes, it's said that the cockpit of the T6 is very similar to the Mustang, and hence if you can fly the Harvard T6, if you will, your transition to the Mustang will be fairly easy, so to speak. Keep an eye on the aircraft today, smoke trail from behind. We're just hoping we get a little bit of blue sunshine for you, or blue sky later on today for you.
Of course, the team also has a number of other guys that they can call on when some of them might be down. Dave Salter, Scotty Taberner and John Rayner, and of course Darcy O'Connor as well.
Pete, the T6 Harvard design, of course, we're seeing here, they weren't operated in Australia during World War II, although certainly aircrew from Australia flew them in Canada and the UK. But that design was basically from North America. At the time they were modifying, having slightly different versions of it. And eventually, one of those came here to Australia to be literally morphed into the Wirraway, which we'll be seeing later on in the program.
Of course, built not too far from here at Fisherman's Bay. Salter, one of the guys who flies in the team occasionally. He has considerable experience. He's got his own T6 as well, but he's a crop duster with over 32,000 hours flight experience. all of it probably no more than 3 to 10 feet above the ground. These aircraft presented there in desert colours. New Zealand Air Force, South African Air Force as well.
And Peter, you mentioned New Zealand Air Force pilots there, and if I recall correctly, or the majority of the T6s that came to Australia, in fact, came from New Zealand, at least in the initial stages of the warbird movement moving forward there.
That's certainly right, Dave, and of course there's a lot of people who don't know what a warbird is, but for those who don't, a warbird is actually any ex-military aircraft that now operates in the civilian guise, and Dave and I are of the era when we can look back and see that there weren't warbirds flying, and we're very, very lucky today that the regulations have changed to permit these aircraft, Spitfires, Mustangs, and even the CAC Sabre that we'll see flying this afternoon as
Now Pete, we've seen one T6 go past us, coming back again, trailing smoke. Big secret is, what is the smoke made of?
basically it's kept in a tank in the aircraft and pumped into the aircraft's exhaust. All environmentally friendly, of course, but it certainly does help to mark where the aircraft are flying and to punctuate these. And then, of course, the bomb burst. That sound that you can hear is not actually the engine, is it? Basically, when you heard the aircraft take off, those propeller tips are actually going supersonic. That's the noise that you can hear. A lot of people believe it might be the engine, but it's certainly not. If the engine was making that sort of noise, it wouldn't be making it for very long.
Two aircraft doing the mid-air crossover, giving us a good example of what that propeller noise is about. And I just think, wow, what would it have been like to have, say, 20 of these aircraft taking off, doing circuits and bumps in a place like this, or some place in Texas, America, or in England. There must have been, the ground would have shaken, and there weren't any noise worrying people in those times.
Corpus Christi, I believe they had something like 157 SNJs, the Navy version of the T6 that were training down there in the Gulf, training US Navy pilots during the war.
The ground would have shaken when they were doing circuits and bumps for most of the day there.
Of course, a lot of the people living around Wigram Air Base in New Zealand until they took the aircraft out of service. Of course, South Africa and New Zealand were the last operators of Harvard aircraft, that all these aircraft were sort of hangovers from the Lend-Lease aircraft they received in World War II.
Amazing to think that they would have kept them for that period of time, but then times change, and people have gone from round engines to flat 4s, flat 6s, flat 8s, and of course more recently to turbine engines. Greater reliability, performance, smaller weight to worry about for the airframe, and these days almost all air forces are using turbine powered aircraft.
But you still can't beat the sound of round.
I couldn't agree with you more.